There are rare cars, and then there's this, the 992 GT3 RS Tribute Edition, the rarest 992 ever built. Only 150 exist on Earth, making it the second rarest 911 in history, beaten only by the mythical 1967 911R, with just 20 made. And you don't simply buy one. You get invited by Porsche to spend $250,000. Oh, did you miss that invitation? Well, you can try the used market where prices soar past $500,000 the moment the keys change hands. You heard that correctly. It appreciated literally immediately. You'd think a car this exclusive would roll off the truck in flawless condition, but it doesn't. Even at that price, it arrives imperfect. Swirls, scratches, tiny flaws that you'll never be able to unsee. That's where I come in. I'm Evan, founder of Status Detail. For more than a decade, my mission has been simple. Deliver the best details on the planet paired with a level of service no one else can match. This GT3 RS will have every inch of paint corrected to absolute perfection, then wrapped top to bottom in STEK PPF, so its owner can drive it properly without a single chip, scratch, or swirl. That's the dream. A beautiful car and worry-free driving. Could he flip it for a profit tomorrow? Absolutely. But that would put him on the Porsche blacklist. And that's a story for another time. He's keeping this gem for life. When you buy your forever car, you bring it to Status Detail. You're about to watch the Forever Detail. The GT3 RS Tribute Edition began its journey at Porsche Columbus in Ohio, then shipped to its new home in Tennessee, and then it was sent here to Status Detail, just outside of Chicago. We have become the go-to destination for car enthusiasts who seek the best detailing services available, resulting in a nearly all out-of-state customer base. Now, in this case, the customer has his own trailer, but he also has his own jet. Yep, you heard that right, let it sink in for a second. On previous cars, he literally flew out just to say hello and then flew back home again. But if you don't own your own trailer, or private plane, or yacht, don't panic. We've got you covered. We work with George from Unlimited Auto, and he's been in many of my videos. So if you're looking to ship a car to Status Detail, he's our #1 recommendation. Let's get this legendary machine inside and see what we're dealing with. You can see the 3RS is a little dirty, including some grass in a couple spots. That's because the car was in a wedding and on a lawn. I mean, when you own one of the rarest 911s ever made, you might as well put it in your wedding, right? You also might notice there's OEM PPF with vinyl on top. That's going to cause kind of a serious issue. Actually, it was a really, really serious issue. It almost derailed the entire detail, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, don't mind that Turbo S in the background, by the way. There's nearly always a Porsche coming or going to Status. Let's jump outside and get our first wash in. You should always wash in the shade and on a cold car. We never really want water to sit on the paint for extended periods of time either, and that's why we always start with the wheels first. P&S Brake Buster has been a bulletproof solution for wheel and tire cleaning. Most importantly, it's safe on carbon ceramic brakes, which can cost up to $40,000 for a set of 4 on a car like this. So you definitely don't want to spray the wrong chemicals on them, as some of the chemicals available can actually slowly destroy CCBs. You'll notice I use the PF22 foam cannon after Brake Buster. That's because I want the maximum lubrication on the wheel when the wheel brushes make contact. These are extremely expensive and rare magnesium wheels, and they are painted in this Heritage Tribute Python green color. So the last thing I want to do is swirl or scratch them. So we shoot a ton of foam on it to have extra lubrication to ensure it's a safe wash. Here are a few photos of crazy brown ugly tire dressing. This must have been applied by the dealership, and one of the reasons we asked them not to touch or detail it. What you're seeing is a 50-50 shot of me pressure washing the tire pretty closely to blow that dressing off. The left side is clean, natural tire, and the right side is, yeah, it's a catastrophe. Thankfully, an easy catastrophe to fix. Before we start any kind of contact wash, we always want to rinse as much large debris off of the car. There's no need to have any of this kind of contamination get into our wash towels. After the wheels are finished and the car has been rinsed, we can actually start what most people would call a car wash. For this first wash, I'll typically use a relatively pH-neutral car shampoo, but I'll mix it with more soap than I would typically do for a maintenance wash. I want to ensure this is a pretty serious, deep, clean wash. So I foam it now and let the foam sit and dwell on the car for a while. During this step, if I feel like the car has rough paint, then I will clay it. But clay is kind of like going to the emergency room. You don't just go there for no reason. If the car doesn't feel rough, then it doesn't need clay. I'll talk more about this briefly when we get to the paint correction step as well, as clay bar and paint correction have a lot in common. The goal of this wash is simple: get the car clean and ready for paint correction. The second wash I do is slightly different. than the first wash, and we'll talk more about that later too. Let's jump back inside and do some minor disassembling and talk about that OEM PPF and vinyl, because it literally almost ruined the entire detail before it started. I'm going to use this towel to pull on this because this is literally pretty sharp. And if you see my fingers, maybe that'll show up. Like, my fingers have lines in them. It would hurt pretty bad to pull on this. So I'm going to use this to pop the clips out and to make it not so hard on my fingers. You can see how much dirt is back here. This is literally why we remove these, because all of this dirt is gonna flow out of here and then go down into this part of the quarter panel. So it might be hard to see this on camera, but right here there's just some adhesive. It's like a little bit of adhesive left over from when the tape got ripped when it was coming off, which is literally the entire reason we put the tape on in the first place. This is not a scratch or anything in the paint, and I'm just gonna show you on camera. If I work this by hand with just a little bit of compound, it's just totally going to remove it. It's just basically the equivalent of like doing Goo Gone, but I'm just working it by hand. And just like that, it's gone. Yep. This is just a precaution. Sometimes some of these clips that are coming off can kind of smack the paint. It's not really going to scratch it. I think it would be hard to scratch the paint with it, but this is a good precaution. You'll also see all the dirt that's in here. I'll try and give you some close-ups of this. It doesn't matter how much I rinse it. I've already washed the car once outside. I foamed it and I rinsed it, and I did a lot of work to try and make sure this car was perfect, but you can just see all of this stuff hides inside of here no matter what. I do what I can to avoid disassembling cars, but if I don't disassemble something like that vent, you can just see how much dirt and gravel and little dust stuff is in there. It's going to come out and it's going to get into the film, and it's not a complicated thing to remove, and we're about to remove this right now as well, so I'll show you doing that. That's a similar thing. We're going to remove this because it's just going to make the install way cleaner, and it's going to reduce adhesive lines because the film won't be like popping up on these big like louver-y things. So in some cases it can be beneficial. We've started to get into disassembling a little bit, but as a general rule, especially through status detail, like I'm going to do everything I can to not disassemble your car. We don't take bumpers off or anything crazy like that, but little things like these vents, it's tremendously helpful just to have a clean install, because you can see even after all the washing I did, even after everything I did to prep this car through that first wash, you can see how much stuff is hiding behind a panel like that. So something that people don't always realize is these pieces, these are just like plastic, or honestly I think they're more like rubber. This thing is raised. If I put paint protection film over this, it's going to like be a tent. It's going to be off the car here. Now when you're going through this and you're squeegeeing, what typically will happen is where the film is stuck, if it sticks for long enough while you're working through this stuff or somewhere else on the car, you're going to end up having adhesive lines form because the film is like standing up on this, and I want to avoid adhesive lines whenever possible. So if I remove these from the car, the film will lay completely flat on the hood. It'll have zero adhesive lines. It'll be much faster to install, and it's just going to look much cleaner. What's more important is that when these are off the car, I can tuck and wrap these edges behind these plastic pieces. And same thing in here, and especially in here, I'm going to be able to wrap underneath these vents. But especially on a white car, you want to eliminate all edges and anything that can potentially collect dirt over time. So especially on a white car, besides having no adhesive lines and stuff like that, we really just want to have the maximum perfect like install with no edges or PPF stuff, like edges showing. These are pretty easy to remove, and I'll show you that really quickly. But basically this has like rubber clips. I don't even know if they're plastic. I think they're more like rubber clips that hold this in. You're literally just going to pop them straight out, and then there's just some bolts, and then the whole thing completely removes from the car. There are some parts of the car that are pretty complicated to remove, and the more complicated the piece you're trying to remove is, the more likely you are to damage something. Our number one goal is to never damage anything. We want this to be the best detail you ever get to the highest standard you've ever seen, but we also want it to be an incredibly smooth process, and that means we never want to break anything. Pieces like this are very low risk to remove, but have massive impact to the final product, especially considering that the hood is probably the highest visibility thing on the entire car. It's one of the first things that most people look at, and in the case of this car, it's a pretty complicated hood with huge cutouts for airflow and aero. So naturally, your eye is going to be attracted to this part of the car. Removing these pieces will make the film be invisible with no edges, but it's also going to make sure that visually it will basically be impossible to tell that there's film on the car, because this version of an installation should result in no stretch lines, no adhesive lines, and no trace that there is paint protection film even on the panel. I've done this to so many of these cars now that I just know exactly where every clip is, where the pressure points are, where the bolts are, etc. At the time of recording this, we have nearly 20 plus 911s coming between end of August and New Year's, including multiple special wishes cars and limited edition 911s and multiple paint to sample cars. You'll have a hard time finding a shop that does more special Porsches than Status. Because this vinyl is on top of this factory PPF piece, if I was to remove this, which obviously we want to do so we get a much cleaner look, we're going to rip off this part of the vinyl. The vinyl over there, to get this whole piece of vinyl, almost impossible. It would basically just take a really, really long time, and we don't have like 3 months to wait for special order Porsche stuff. So the solution that we came up with is we're going to score the PPF along here, basically right along the green edge, and then do the same thing here. And then I'm going to remove this section, and I'm going to remove this section. Then we're going to PPF the whole car. You're going to get a little bit of an air gap line here, but we were going to get an air gap line there anyways because of the vinyl. So it might be a little more pronounced, but really it's from, more than a foot away. I think it's just going to look totally normal and match. And then we're going to PPF over this, and then we might do our double layer afterwards. This is really the only way to preserve this Python green color, which is like basically virtually impossible to get from Porsche. They protect it pretty heavily, and they had to do a special order process and put in notes and get it from Germany, and they had to make it, and literally they told me it'd be like 3 months to get it. I did some really, really, really light passes with the knife here, just because this is thicker PPF than the stuff that we use, which is good because it's thick, it'll protect it from rock chips, but it might cut differently. So I did a couple test passes with like 1% increments in different pressure just to see how it'll tear, because I'm only gonna get one shot at scoring this and then tearing it off. So I have to make sure that it's perfect the first time, because we will not get a second attempt at this, which is a little nerve-wracking. That's why we're doing test ones up here, to make this one not nerve-wracking. And after doing it like 3 times, I think I got it. But when I score it and tear it, it's tearing exactly like STEK film does. I just realized that maybe in the beginning, I'm gonna do like 3%, like 3% extra, just to make sure the tear starts. And then from there, it's going to follow perfectly. So let's jump into it, and we got to cut out both these sets. Let me clarify a little bit, because you might be missing some context. We obviously would have ordered the vinyls, so we didn't have to do the step the way we're doing it. The issue is special cars like this have special vinyl, and other special versions of 911s, like the Spirit 70, for example, have special vinyl as well. These cars are extremely limited, and Porsche treats them that way, because they don't want someone to take a normal 3RS, for example, paint the wheels Python green, and then put the vinyl on it and make it look like a tribute car. So they protect these vinyl packages and make them very complicated to get them. So the dealership parts department has to literally do the equivalent of asking, pretty please, to Germany. Germany needs to approve it, then they'll make it effectively whenever they want to, and then ship it to us, meaning it would take months and months and months waiting for this. We're currently trying to get a vinyl set on a Spirit 70 911. At the moment, we actually can't even get permission to get the vinyl. So on special cars like this can be a big hurdle, and if you have a special car like this and you want us to do the car, you should reach out to us and your dealership right away so we can try and source whatever is needed. So now you're caught up. That's why I'm scoring the film and tearing it to preserve the vinyl, because if I try to remove the OEM PPF, I will ruin that vinyl. And if I ruin the vinyl, there's really no coming back. We would just have to remove the green vinyl, and that would kind of undo one of the big reasons why this is a heritage spec car. So as you can see, this is a pretty serious step that required insane levels of precision. I get one shot and one shot only at making this cut perfect. Thankfully, in situations like this, I'm pretty cool, calm, and collected, and I'm pretty confident in my abilities and in my skill set. Now, to be super clear again, I'm not cutting the film, I'm scoring it. And then I'm tearing the film along that score line. That's why you'll see me heating the film up and pulling it up, but then I'm pulling on the film really carefully when I get to the score line. Because if I just yank it straight up vertically, the entire piece is going to come off and it's going to ruin this piece. That's why I'm being really intentional on the direction that I'm pulling it and making sure that I'm on the line where I score it. If I cut all the way through, it wouldn't matter how I pulled it. Again, that's That's why this was so tricky, because if I didn't score it correctly, it wouldn't tear on the score line, and then we would have a pretty serious issue. For anyone that's ever done PPF before, you know that when you score something, then it doesn't rip on that line, you're in trouble, because you have to rescore it a second time, and you're going to be in a bit of a predicament, especially when I did my first score line extremely close to the vinyl edge. You can see once the PPF is removed, it just looks like it has vinyl on it now. At the back section, you can see where the PPF ends, and we can't do much about that. Sometimes we have forces outside of our control that will limit what we can and cannot do. This almost derailed the entire detail, but this is an awesome solution that maintains full OEM Python green vinyl and allows us to move forward with the process of doing full body PPF. I grabbed this so I could show it to you guys. So this is a box of blades right here. So like every time I do a cut, more or less, these have little snap off things on them, and you can put this in here, turn it, and snap the blade off. I already did that. This is a brand new blade. Every time I do a cut that's like a higher risk cut, like if I'm doing something that's off the car, like if the hood's up and it's in the air, I need to cut some bulk trim off, whatever, I'll just cut it. But if I'm doing something on the paint, almost every time I do that, I snap my blade, because that makes my blade super, super sharp. It's a maximum sharp new blade. That means every time I cut, I know my tension is right, because it's not, degrading. The blade actually dulls pretty quickly, so the pressure will change. You'll have to put more pressure the more the blade is dulling. But when the blade is fresh every time, your pressure is the same every time, and that helps you be really, really consistent. Now, because this is extra complicated, because this is OEM film that's a little thicker and a little stranger than what I'm typically cutting, and I already talked about how we did the test cuts with no pressure to get the pressure dialed in. The point is, on the other side, the sticker is reversed, so it's flat on the bottom on both sides, but on this side, it's curved, and then I'm going to have to go down and over, which is kind of annoying, but the point is, fresh blade for sure for the top of this, because this cut is a little more tricky. Sometimes when you do an angle, like a curve, you're more likely to cut the paint on accident. So you just want to be able to have the reassurance of a snapped blade. It's fresh, it's sharp, and we're going to do this one time, and it's going to be perfect. So I don't think I've ever talked about that or showed that on camera, but I go through hundreds and hundreds of snapped blades when I'm going through a car, because I'm just being really, really careful all the time when we're cutting. So you'll see real quick, I'm going to snap this blade. So it goes in there. I don't like how short that is, because the shorter the blade, the more I have to ride the tip of the blade. I like to keep the blade like really straight to the car. I don't like riding it like that. So the shorter the blade, the more I have to be like that. The longer the blade, the more I can be like this, which makes it a safer cut, making sure I'm scoring it and not slicing through it. So because again, this is such a high risk cut, high risk might be the wrong word, but this is a complicated thing to do because of the thickness of this. And I don't like the angle this is going to be. So even though I have two more snaps on here, I almost never use these last two snaps. So I'm just going to get rid of this and just throw the blade out. And I'm going to go to a fresh blade, so it's going to be the long distance. And it's just the cost of doing business. I throw a lot of blades out. Sometimes I only use the first two snaps because I want to make sure I'm staying super flat on the paint. And in this case, for this, it's worth it. So I'm going to trash the blade and grab a fresh one. All right, I'm on a fresh blade now, so you can see it comes out really far. So like I said, I'm going to be able to stay flat around this. But I don't always trust the first blade, especially recently. I've noticed a pack or two of blades, the first one doesn't seem great, and it might be because the point in the package rattles a little bit, and it actually literally does dull the front of this blade. Again, guys, we're talking like it feels 3% off, right? Like it's a small amount. It's not a huge crazy thing, but I notice that it doesn't feel right. So again, for a cut this big, we only get one chance at this. If I screw this up, I have to wait 3 months for a sticker. It's not worth it. I'm snapping the first blade. It's a no-brainer. Get rid of that guy. Bulk installing and hand cutting PPF, simply put, is an art form. It takes real patience and practice to master, especially when you're working with extra thick film like this. Every installer eventually develops their own way to hold their PPF knife and, more importantly, their own blade of choice. Bulk installing and hand cutting PPF, simply put, is an art form. It takes real patience and practice to master, especially when you're working with extra thick film like this. Every installer eventually develops their own way to hold their PPF knife and, more importantly, their own blade of choice. Once you find that blade, you don't switch because you know exactly how it feels, how much pressure it needs, and how to perfectly navigate every curve and body line. Just like an artist has their favorite paintbrush, every PPF installer has their favorite blade and blade holder. And that connection between tool and technique is what makes the difference between average work and flawless perfect cuts every time. So it might be hard to see, but basically this is trimmed right along the top of that. I came down and then over. I might clean up a little spot there just to be extra precise, but I mean to 99% of the world it's basically perfect. And then same thing down there, we trimmed that, so this looks really good. I'm often asked, and I was actually asked on this car recently on Instagram, if I get nervous while I'm working on exotic cars and things like that, especially rare cars like this. And my answer's always been the same, and it's no. I'm actually super at home and super calm when I'm working on them, and it's because I've redone so many cars that have been done other places, and I've seen how bad the work was, that I know that the quality of work I turn out is way higher than that. I know that my pressure and what I'm cutting is spot on. So it's just like I have all the confidence in the world to do this car perfectly, and because I do so much of this now, it's just another day. It doesn't matter if the car is $50,000 or $500,000 or $1 million. Cutting is cutting when it's on, when it's the film I'm installing, and paint correction is paint correction, paint is paint. You have to separate the value from the skill that you've learned and then just do that skill. So I'm very, very comfortable with this kind of stuff now. None of this stuff freaks me out. You have to be careful though when a car is with someone and the people or the company is freaking out like, oh my God, like I can't even, like I'm shaking, look at this. Like that's when mistakes happen, because now people are like scared of this thing. So it's best to choose a place that really is just super confident, and when they see a car like this, like I get excited, I'm like, whoa, check this thing out, but then that lasts like 10 seconds and it's over. It's like, yeah, I just did a Guards Red GT3 RS like really recently, like maybe 3 weeks ago. I just did a Turbo S across over here, that's $250,000. I did 2 Spider RSs back to back before this. I have like 2 more Spider RSs coming soon. We'll probably have a 750S coming soon that's like $400,000. Like I just do this all the time. Like, there's nothing scary about it. It's just normal status detail stuff. And it's important to understand and recognize that that is a factor when you're choosing a shop with a car that's rare or special. Find someone who's a little bit unimpressed, because it'll be good for like the confidence level of people cutting on the car and doing stuff like that. Now, you'd think the car represents the very pinnacle of German engineering and perfection, but the truth is, the paintwork, it still needs some help. Like, a lot of help. And help is on the way, dear! Some of my recent videos have attracted a lot of new viewers and subscribers. By the way, thank you to the new subscribers and the die-hard longtime followers who know what I'm about to tell the new viewers watching for the first time today. Your new Porsche paint? Yeah, it's almost always an abomination. The delivery should go like this. Congratulations on your new car. By the way, who's finishing the paint job? Because we stopped at about 85%. The white paint hides most of it, but when you check the carbon fiber panels, the truth comes out. Severe swirls, holograms, and of course, the trademark Porsche sanding marks. The majority of the car has the same issue. It's just very difficult to see it on a white car. Thankfully, all of this is fixable by a paint correction specialist. My goal is always the same. Leave as much clear coat as possible, maximize gloss, and remove as many defects as I can, without compromising the clear coat durability. Sometimes that means chasing 98% and calling it done, because the car is brand new and still has decades of paint correction and detailing ahead of it. Too many detailers work fast with the wrong approach and theory. The result? They remove way more clear than was necessary. I'm calculated about it. I was able to clean it all up safely with minimal clear removed. This was my driver's package plus, by the way, which is a level 3 paint correction, a package that gets most cars to perfect and is also my most popular package that is selected. My diehard fans keep asking for an RS5 update. So here you go. AWE Touring exhaust recently installed with a cold start.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, that smells like pure gasoline.
And cold start on the Tribute. This is the second wash, and it's a pretty modular one. Depending on how crazy the correction was, I'll do different soap ratios, contact or no contact wash, and if the car was previously ceramic coated and I'm seeing excessive beading still, I'll actually redo some paint correction steps and wash it again. So if we look for really flat water behavior during this wash, that confirms it's bare paint and PPF will have great adhesive durability. Because the paint correction process was relatively straightforward and I used mostly CarPro Reflect, I felt comfortable using a strong ratio of soap in my foam cannon and giving that a long dwell time. After that, I simply had to rinse it back off, no contact needed. The water rinsed away flat, confirming I was on the right track. If I felt the car was excessively covered in dust or I had used a bunch of compound, I would have done a contact wash, because compound really likes to attach itself to the car when it's covered in dust, and it builds up on the edges too. The safest and most efficient way to remove this is by agitation with a towel. This is not as important when I've only used mostly polish. Now I'm going to go one step further and I'm going to rinse every jam, every seam, every panel gap. Around the headlights, the taillights, the mirrors, etc. I really want to make sure that I've blasted all the dirt out. Like that dirt that we found in the first wash after I pulled the vents out in the quarter panels. Remember all that dirt? That's literally the stuff of nightmares for a PPF installer. So this is my last big chance to ensure I've gotten all of that stuff off the car and out of the places that it might be hiding. I do even more prep before PPF too. I'll show you that soon. We go over the top when it comes to PPF prep and ensuring the installations go smoothly with no contamination. Many people have commented that we should be washing inside if we're that concerned about dust. I can totally understand where your head's at. You're thinking, well, we're outside, so now all these elements can make the car dusty, which would undo the things that we're doing. The reality is, if I had washed it inside, I would be putting all the dust and dirt that's on the car back on the floor. So we pulled the car outside, and then I actually clean the entire floor every time during this step, and I wash the car outside, and then I pull it immediately back inside, and I shut the door. And then I finish the final drying steps inside to ensure the paint is clean, and that the floor and the room and the countertops and everything is clean. We've effectively prepared the car and the room for surgery. At this point, the big door never opens again until the car is in the ceramic stage or leaving to go home. One of my biggest priorities here is to keep the inside of the shop clean all the time. When Obed was hired and joined Status Detail, one of the first things he noticed about the installs here was that we virtually never get dust in our PPF panels. He said the shop he used to work at was pretty common to have dust because it was kind of a dusty environment. And if you want to get technical, that shop washed cars inside. My point is simple. I have a system and a process and it's working perfectly as intended. But as I mentioned, I can understand the comments and where you guys are coming from, but I need you to trust the process. Oh, and that signature is from Chief Developer of the RS Division. No big deal. Installing STEK or STEK PPF is the most time-consuming part of the detail. It's also the highest skill gap and most expensive part of the detail. It's also going to have the biggest impact on keeping the car looking new while he drives the car and enjoys it. You will see, as I mentioned before, I prep every panel again before PPF, so the last wash was important, but I'm still going the extra mile to work clean. I'll even wet the floor to be extra careful. Blowing out panel gaps with the big boy is our last effort to ensure no dirt creeps out of random panel gaps. Then spraying the panel with soapy water and squeegeeing all the water back off ensures there's no dust on the panel. Then I spray the panel again and I put the PPF on quickly, minimizing the chance of contamination to get between the car and the film. I bulk install virtually everything. That means I roll one big piece of film out and I stretch it in place and squeegee it down and custom cut everything out so it's a perfect fit every time. Basically, I float the film with water and soap and then squeegee it out in one shot. This also results in no stretch marks or adhesive lines. Now, those would be pretty hard to see on a white car, but they're going to be really obvious on a dark colored car or the carbon fiber parts of the car. And they're still possible to be seen on a white car. The point is, we don't want anything to give away that the car has PPF on it, and a big old adhesive line through the middle would be pretty obvious. More importantly, on more complicated panels, when you bulk stretch the film, you reduce the need for relief cuts and seams. Again, a really big relief cut on a panel gives away that it has film on it. I want you to have to walk up to this car and put your face a half inch off the panel to tell that there's film. I've even had customers put their face that close to a car and be like, where's the film, Evan? Like, did you even wrap this piece? And it's typically because we hidden the edge and, wrapped it behind. And that's always the goal. We don't want you to be able to tell that this car has protection on it. Here, you're going to see I'm pulling out the rubber trim by the windows, and this is a pretty easy thing to remove. On a white car, you will begin to build some dirt edges that are ultimately easy to clean, but not very fun to look at. So I definitely don't want something like the top edge of the door to be highly visible with dirt. So if we remove this piece, we can wrap the film underneath it, and then it literally will be honestly impossible to tell it has film on it. For all the installers out there, if you take this out after the last wash, it will slide right out. If you wait until a day or two later, all the water dries out and there's a lot more tension and friction holding this in place. It'll still come out. The point is it's just going to be more difficult, so I highly recommend removing this after your wash. You're also going to see that I removed the door handles. Now on some cars you have to do some pretty crazy stuff to get door handles off, including taking off the inside panel of the door and messing around with airbags to get them out of the way. Thankfully, on the 3RS and on the G80 M3, you can take 2 screws out and the whole door handle will basically come off. You can reach these when the door is open and just put a Torx screwdriver through the door jamb side of the door. Again, it's pretty shockingly easy to do this, and it's almost impossible to lose the screw in the door because once it backs out, it kind of spins and just doesn't fall into the door, which would obviously be a pretty big concern. The end result, again, is going to be perfectly fully wrapped door, top to bottom, front to back. The most important thing to remember here is that the things we did remove had a huge impact on the overall install. But more importantly than that, the things we removed were easy to remove and safe to remove. Speaking of things that aren't exactly safe to remove, in my opinion, the mirror is not very easy to pull off on this car, at least in my standards of what would be easy. It would require fully removing the inside door panel, which is something I do my best to avoid. More importantly, it's just unnecessary because we use the berthing method. So yeah, first of all, that's super fun to say. It also allows me to use pretty funny memes, and if you're a longtime follower of the channel, you know I enjoy a pretty good meme. What ultimately makes this possible is steaming the film. It really softens and loosens it up and allows it to stretch quite a lot over the mirror. We get a lot of customers who previously had PPF installs where they have the vertical seam by the mirror, and that does drive a lot of people crazy. And I totally understand, and that is why we do the berthing method. As you can clearly see, this is a pretty complicated door to do. When you come to Satis Detail for a forever detail, you just don't want to be looking at unnecessary seams for the rest of your life on your forever car. Now here you're going to see I'm cutting out the mirror hole. I'm kind of old school, and I do this by hand with a custom-made template. Now you could definitely use a plotter to cut this out, and we actually do use a plotter on occasion now for some BMW bumpers. Simply put, some of those bumpers are so crazy that they do come out better when they're plotted. We like to plot the general design, then we end up hand cutting and trimming the rest of it. This kind of gives us like a head start. But for whatever reason, I like my old school hand cutting templates. It's a pretty unique skill, and it's definitely an art form all on its own. I always joke with Obed that I am the plotter. I'm pretty sure that's going to end up on a shirt soon. So if you want Status merch or an I am the plotter shirt, comment below. I'd love to gauge interest. Obed has absolutely been killing it, by the way. I've supplied him with what seems to be an endless weekly 911 job, so he has gotten to learn the ins and outs of how I do them. As I'm literally recording the lines for this right now, he's berthing 2 doors on a 911 GTS. The way I do fenders is pretty complicated, and I'm 100% sure he's capable of doing it. We just haven't spent a lot of time training that. It will be his next phase of training, at least on 911s, and once he can do that, he can technically do an entire 911 by himself. Now to be clear, because a lot of people ask about this, I still work on every single car here. Obed helps me do the work, and he will absolutely do some of the panels by himself because he's very talented, and I wouldn't let him do it if I didn't think he was turning out work that is extremely good. But the point is, I still help on the car every single day, and I still do all the quality control even after he does the quality control. So the quality of the work that's happening here has not changed. The funny thing is, Obed wraps things sometimes, and then I go to look it over, and I'm like, whoa, dude, you tried way harder on that than I would have. He also really wants edges that can't be wrapped to be cut really tight, sometimes too tight. It's pretty funny because that's how I started out when Paul was teaching me. I always wanted everything to be crazy perfect on the edge. And as I've been doing this for a few years now, and I've come to the realization that that typically results in durability problems. So we always have to ride that line of aesthetic cuts, but also durable cuts. So it's kind of this crazy outer body experience. Like I'm seeing Obed learn as I saw myself learn, and now I'm like the Paul teaching. It's pretty insane, actually. It's like experiencing deja vu from another person's perspective, watching myself like an outer body experience. It's hard to explain, but it's a wild journey.
That doesn't make sense.
Long story short, he has the right idea. He's trying really, really hard. It would be a totally different conversation if he was doing things and I was like, whoa, you need to try way harder. That wasn't even close. PPF is for anyone who wants to drive a car often. People who don't want to worry about chips, scratches, swirls. People that value time and want fast and fun washes. It's for car enthusiasts who simply want the best protection available. No one wants that nagging feeling that he's losing tons of value because it's got 500 rock chips on the hood and the bumper and the rockers, and to be left wondering if the miles were worth it because now it just doesn't look as good as it was when it was new. And you're stuck wondering, should I repaint this or should I leave it? That's why you do a forever detail. That's why you PPF and ceramic coat it, so you can drive it, enjoy it, never feel bad about it. And if it builds up some chips and nicks and scratches over the years of unforgettable drives on one of the rarest Porsches ever, then we can just remove and replace a few PPF panels. Or we can redo everything, and in 10 years he can take delivery all over again as if it was brand new with 15 miles. That's the beautiful part of PPF. That's what so many haters miss when they jump in the comments saying, what's the point, or he won't use it. Every one of my customers drives their cars. That was the whole point, to drive the wheels off and have an easy method to reset the clock and have a new car again. And if you hardly drive it, it's still peace of mind that someone at Cars and Coffee doesn't scratch it leaning over it or against it. It's 10 years of self-healing and no more paint correction. It's 10 years of mental peace that the car is perfect and protected. All of this means nothing, by the way, if you get a bad install. That's why choosing your installer is so important. Choosing the right installer is also the last video I released if you're curious to watch that. That's why nearly all of my customers ship in from out of state, especially on a white car. We need every edge wrapped. Perfect straight cuts when we can't wrap something. We need a good film with good quality and good warranty. We need a good company that stands behind the product as well. We want this car to look like it has no film on it. That's pretty tricky to do, and it's part of why this process takes over a week from start to finish. And we want it to last a decade or longer. Off camera, the car was ceramic coated, and just about everything you can imagine was clean, protected, and ceramic coated. What you see now is the result of over a week of my OCD running wild with virtually no budget constraints. When a customer comes to me saying, I bought something rare, I'm keeping it for life, and I want the best you can do, well, you'll receive this. The finished product you see on screen now is one of the best details available in any state or zip code. It's passion-driven and exacting because I'd never do it any other way, and this is what a forever detail looks like. The forever detail kind of had a secret meaning, and of course, I wanted to save that for the end of the video. Obviously, this is a forever car for a customer, but this was also a forever detail for me. Every detail technically is the forever detail, because I am forever learning and always wanting to improve. I think YouTube channels grow when you know who is running the channel. I think that connection between viewer and channel is extremely important. So I'm going to leave you with this. By the way, if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, share it with someone who will love it and enjoy it. Recently in a YouTube comment, someone was referencing me as like the best there is in kind of a finite way in a comparison. And I found it interesting, and I commented back something along the lines of, I would say that I'm at the top of my game right now. I'm definitely very, very good at the stuff I do, but I still strive to be better than I was yesterday, because I know that I can be better than yesterday. Basically, there was still something left on the table that if I research or practice or study can result in new growth and a new level of perfect. A level I previously didn't know how to offer. Now let's be clear, that doesn't mean I offer bad work today if I can offer better work tomorrow. It means today's work is some of, if not the best available in the industry. But instead of calling this the top, the pinnacle, I call it a work in progress. The journey and research and practice and development of my detail process is never ending. I won't be happy saying I figured it all out and then just stay at that level forever. Imagine this, a mountain that seems nearly endless. I've climbed higher than everyone who came before me. I could stick my flag in the mountain and say, I did it. Maybe wait and see if someone ever climbs higher than me. Or I could keep my flag and see how much further I can climb. Doesn't really matter if I ever put the flag in the mountain. The flag is for other people to see and say, wow, he made it that far? Look how much further his flag is than everyone else's. See, I don't care about the flag. I don't need a flag. This is between me and the mountain, and I have more climbing to do. I'll see you guys all in the next video very, very soon.